जरूर। सपने हैं लहरे, मंजिलें हैं दूर, युवा तुम कुड़िया, हाथ तेरा मिले जरूर। सपने हैं लहरे, मंजिलें हैं दूर, युवा तुम कुड़िया, हाथ तेरा मिले जरूर। सपने हैं लहरे, मंजिलें हैं दूर, युवा तुम कुड़िया, हाथ तेरा मिले जरूर। सपने
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking you somewhere really special, a place of just immense natural beauty, this kind of ecological titan hidden away in India. We're heading to Jharkhand, to a region they call the Land of 700 Hills.
That's right, the Saranda forest. And it really is, well, quite something. We've got a whole stack of sources here detailing its incredible natural wealth, its, deep cultural roots, and also this decade-long, really high-stakes legal fight over protecting it, which is running right up against the huge demands of India's iron ore industry.
Okay, before we get into that conflict, maybe let's just establish what this place is. The name, Saranda. It sounds intriguing. Does it tell us anything?
It really does. It's a great example of a name tied right to the place. The most common understanding, and it fits the landscape perfectly, is that it means the site of 700 hills. I mean, this whole area, mostly in West Singhbum district, it's just this rolling, undulating terrain, elevations from maybe 200 up to 900 meters.
Hills everywhere. But I think the sources mention another possible meaning, too.
They did, yeah. A second one, maybe a bit more poetic. It might combine two local words, saram, which means sambar deer, and da, which means water. So, whether you see it as a land of hills or a place vital for deer and water, the name itself speaks volumes about its natural heritage.
Right. So our mission, I guess, in this deep dive is to really unpack why this forest is so important globally even, who lives there, who protects it, and what this pretty dramatic recent Supreme Court intervention actually means for what is, after all, Asia's largest cell forest. Okay, let's get into it.
Well, the scale, ecologically speaking, is just staggering. When we say Asia's largest cell forest, you have to picture this incredibly dense, almost irreplaceable canopy. It's not just trees. It's a massive carbon sink, a truly invaluable gift of nature. The sal tree is dominant, and that creates this very specialized, very rich habitat underneath.
And that density, that must mean incredible biodiversity, right? The sources listed quite a lot.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just a list. It's like a testament to this forest being one of the last really stable refuges for central Indian wildlife. We're talking dozens and dozens of species, mammals, birds, reptiles.
And some surprising ones, too. I think I saw something about flying lizards.
Yeah, that's one of the things that jumped out at me, too. Saranda is home to endangered species, and yes, that includes the flying lizard.
Yeah.
You don't immediately think India and flying lizards, but they're there. It just shows what a unique environmental niche this place is.
And the plants are just as unique, I gather.
Very much so. If you look at a specific area, Volkobad, for instance, it's at a higher elevation, about 550 meters. The sources highlight its unique botany. This forest holds the last known population of a specific, really rare orchid, the Bulbophyllum crassipes. It's like a botanical fingerprint. It barely exists anywhere else.
Wow. The whole environment sounds pretty intense. I was really struck by the description of the Lagada swamp, also near Tholkabad. They say it's so deep that, well, large forest elephants can literally vanish into it. That paints quite a picture.
It does, doesn't it? And that swamp detail, it kind of perfectly illustrates Saranda's most critical role, perhaps. It's an elephant highway, a vital one. This isn't just some isolated patch of green. It's a crucial corridor for central Indian elephants, letting them move between 4 states, Odisha, West Bengal, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh. If Saranda gets fragmented or destroyed, Well, that whole regional elephant movement is in serious trouble.
That corridor really shows the huge ecological reach. Okay, so let's connect that landscape now to the people, the cultural side, the history.
Right. Because about 80% of the population there belongs to ancient tribal communities,
Mm.
mostly the Munda and Oron peoples. And they aren't just living there. They are, the traditional protectors, the stewards of this forest. Their history there goes back millennia.
And their whole way of life is tied to the forest, isn't it?
Completely.
Yeah.
Their livelihoods come directly from forest resources, collecting honey, mushrooms, mahua flowers and seeds, which are incredibly important locally, sal leaves for plates, medicinal plants, wood for lac production from certain trees. It's their lifeblood, not just a resource to be extracted.
And there's a spiritual dimension to the sacred groves.
Exactly. This is fascinating. Every village traditionally sets aside a patch of forest, usually maybe 2 to 5 acres, called the Sarna. These are sacred groves, places of worship. They revere trees like the sal and karam. So the forest is literally woven into their spiritual identity. Conservation is sort of inherent in the culture.
And just like the ecology depends on water, so do the people. The sources mentioned the rivers are key.
Yeah, the drainage mostly flows north into the South Cole River. But the Koina River is highlighted as the most important one in the region. Its perennial flows all year round. That makes it absolutely essential for farming, for sustaining communities, not just in Harkham, but downstream in Odisha, too. It's like the engine of the region.
Okay, and just briefly touching on the history. It went from local rulers, the Raja Apurahat, to British control back in the 1830s. But what's interesting is that conservation efforts started really early, didn't they? Like 1864.
That's right. It was recognized as special quite early on. It led to it being declared a reserved forest by 1889. I believe. So this idea of Saranda needing some form of protection isn't new. It's been recognized for well over a century.
Which brings us right up to the modern conflict, because this ecological treasure, this cultural homeland, it sits right on top of a massive economic resource.
Exactly. Iron ore. That's what makes this forest such a fierce battleground.
How much are we talking about?
Estimates suggest Saranda holds something like 26% of India's entire iron ore reserves. It's huge. And it's not just potential. There are 2 massive operational mines already there, Kiraburu and Meghahatuburu. They're run by SAIL, the Steel Authority of India. And the sources are pretty clear. This ore is considered nationally critical. It's used in things like the Chandrayaan space missions, components for submarine defense.
Okay, so you have this direct clash. Vital national development, strategic materials, versus globally significant biodiversity and ancient culture. And this collision has fueled this decade-long legal fight to get it declared a wildlife sanctuary. Can you walk us through how that unfolded?
Sure. The formal legal push really began around 2012. It started with a PIL, a public interest litigation, filed in the Jharkhand High Court. Basically, that's a lawsuit brought by citizens to protect the public interest. So conservationists were framing the threat to the forest as a major public concern.
And the legal pressure built up from there.
It did. The case eventually moved to the National Green Tribunal, the NGT, which is India's special environmental court. In 2022, the NGT actually ordered the state government to declare a sanctuary, covering about 400 square kilometers.
But the state didn't just do it.
No, they dragged their feet. They raised concerns about, tribal rights being affected, but probably more significantly, the potential loss of mining revenue. That's a big factor for the state government.
Right, and that delay, that inaction, that's what finally triggered the Supreme Court's intervention.
Exactly. And it was pretty dramatic. In September 2025, the Supreme Court basically lost patience. They issued a very stern warning, threatening state officials with contempt of court charges if the sanctuary notification wasn't issued. And fast. That really forced the issue.
So, faced with that threat, what did the government do?
Well, as of the latest update we have, October 2025, the Jharkhand government did finally issue the notification. They declared an area of 314.68 square kilometers as a wildlife sanctuary. So slightly smaller than the NGT had ordered, but still substantial.
Okay, so it's done. Sanctuary status achieved.
Well, yes and no. They issued the notification, but almost immediately announced they plan to challenge their own decision. They want to appeal to the Supreme Court to reduce the area further, down to maybe 250 square kilometers. So the legal wrangling, it's definitely not over yet.
Wow. So you've got this fundamental tension. How do you balance these really crucial national economic needs, the state's revenue from mining, against protecting Asia's largest sal forest, its unique ecosystem, the tribal heritage, especially when, as the sources note, illegal mining was rampant there in the 2000s and already caused a lot of damage.
That's the crux of it. And that struggle is exactly why we need to be really clear about what this new sanctuary status actually means for the people who live there.
Right, because the primary fear you hear from local residents, from some politicians too, is mass displacement. That sanctuary status means everyone gets kicked out, particularly because it's a fifth schedule area. What does that mean again?
The fifth schedule is a special provision in the Indian Constitution. It's designed for areas with a large tribal population, giving them certain rights to self-governance and protecting their land and culture. So the fear is that declaring it a sanctuary somehow overrides those constitutional protections.
But the sources seem to draw a really important distinction here.
Yes, and this is critical to understand. A wildlife sanctuary, or WLS, is legally and practically different from a national park, an NP. National parks often do involve resettlement, clearing human habitation. But wildlife sanctuaries specifically allow for tribal communities to continue living inside, to cultivate land, and to use forest resources sustainably.
And there's another layer of legal protection too, the Forest Rights Act.
Absolutely. The Forest Rights Act, the FRA from 2006, is a landmark piece of legislation. It explicitly guarantees individual and community rights for forest-dwelling communities. This includes rights like collecting minor forests to produce the honey, mushrooms, leaves we talked about, grazing livestock, access to water bodies, protecting sacred sites. Crucially, the Supreme Court's own advisor, the amicus curiae, specifically confirmed in October 2025 that the Sanctuary Declaration does not extinguish these FRA rights. In fact, settling any pending FRA claims is supposed to be a priority under the new sanctuary status.
Okay, so while the political noise and the fear about displacement are real, the actual legal framework seems designed to allow people to stay and maintain their traditional practices.
That's how it's meant to work, yes.
Yeah.
Now that brings us to the trade-offs, the pros and cons. On the pro-conservation side, the benefits are pretty clear. It offers legal protection for that unique biodiversity, the orchids, the elephants, everything. It helps stabilize the ecosystem, maintain its role as a carbon sink, and critically, it should provide stronger tools to limit the kind of illegal mining that caused so much damage before.
But there are economic downsides, even with the big sale mines being allowed to continue.
Yes, the sanctuary rules typically include a buffer zone. In this case, it mandates a 1-kilometer zone around the boundary where new mining is prohibited. So while the existing national projects inside might be exempt, this buffer zone prevents mining expansion and potentially impacts local jobs linked to mining infrastructure, transport, support services, etc. That's the legitimate economic concern that the state government is likely focusing on in its appeal for a smaller area.
So if some of those mining-related jobs are affected, what's the alternative vision? The sources mention ecotourism. Does that seem viable there?
It seems quite promising, actually, partly because Saranda is naturally stunning, and it already has some established tourist spots, things like Tyoba Falls, Pencherry Falls, Chingra Fall, plus these viewpoints at Kiriburu and Megahatubru that offer sunrise and sunset views people already visit. The sanctuary designation could really promote and structure ecotourism development around these assets.
Creating different kinds of local jobs?
Exactly. Roles for local community members as guides, running homestays, providing transport and food services,
Right.
shifting the local economy gradually away from such heavy dependence on mining. It's a model that's worked with varying degrees of success in other protected areas in India, like Manas National Park in Assam, for example.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening? Saranda, this land of 700 hills, is now, at least on paper, entering a new phase. It's got enhanced legal protection, trying to safeguard its incredible biological heritage while still facing these immense pressures from iron ore extraction and national development goals.
Yeah, we've seen its staggering natural wealth, Asia's biggest elf forest, that crucial elephant corridor, the rare orchids. We've touched on the deep cultural history, the Munda and Oraon communities and their connection to the land. And it all culminated in this high-stakes legal drama in 2025, forcing the sanctuary notification, even if the final chapter isn't quite written yet.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. The formal declaration of the sanctuary, it uses modern conservation law to protect the forest. But as we heard, the indigenous communities there have historically been its protectors through their culture, through their sacred sarna groves. The provocative question, maybe, is how can this modern legal framework, the wildlife sanctuary, truly align with and maybe even empower that ancient resident stewardship? How does it avoid just imposing protection from the outside and instead work with the people who have always been a part of the forest? That's something to mull over as you think about the future of Saranda and maybe other vital ecosystems like it around the world.